What's up, Jive Turkeys? It's your host with the most, the Holy Ghost, like a pot roast. It's the Storytime with Boots podcast, and it's the Week 7 NFL preview. As always, we're going to start off the show by recapping what happened in Week 6, and that's going to be our receipt pool picks. That's going to be our plays for Week 6, along with the over-unders, fantasy, how we did there, and then we'll get into Week 7. For Week 7, we'll do the receipt pool picks, we'll do the plays along with the over-unders, and then we'll get into fantasy for that as well. As always, make sure you check out my social media. I posted everything, my picks on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, and that's just Storytime with Boots. All right, so let's get into Week 6, and it was pretty much par for the course, the same as every other week. 2-2 once again. For anyone who doesn't remember, 4 picks. The Bucs and the Falcons under 57.5. I went on a win with that, just with a gut feeling. Figured the opposite was going to happen. That didn't happen, so that play lost. I had the Steelers minus 2.5. That won. Last second touchdown, Antonio Brown. Helped me out in fantasy as well. Cards just barely squeaked it out thanks to that hook, plus 10.5, so I won that one. And then the Jags pulled a clunker, minus 3, getting blown out by the Cowboys. Not sure how that happened. That was a loss. So my Week 6 receipt pool picks, 2-2. Now my games and the over-unders. The games I went 9-6, won 9, lost 6 against the spread, which means if you bet against me, you would have lost some money. However, my over-unders, I was 5-10. So if you bet against me there, then you would have won some money. And overall, my win-loss for everything total last week, I was 14 wins to 16 losses. So that means if you did bet against all the picks and you did $100, you would have won a little bit of money minus the juice. Anywhooser, let's hop into Week 7. I'll keep the show pretty quick this week. My receipt pool picks, we're going to go back to Week 6 fantasy first. So let's touch on that before we hop into Week 7. My Week 6 fantasy picks for quarterback, I had Big Ben, Kirk Cousins, and Jameis Winston. Big Ben was right about 20 points in FanDuel. Kirk Cousins was, I think, about 18, so that was a dud. And Winston hit. He was a $7,400 play that I think he wound up having around 32 points. So that one hit. But it went out kind of like I thought it would. He scored a lot of garbage time points. He still had 2 interceptions. Still lost the game. He is a good fantasy play and can put up points. My running back plays, my top play hit, James Conner. He was a stud. I also had David Johnson and Nyheim Hines, who did not hit. Wide receivers, Antonio Brown. He hit. Calvin Ridley at 6,700. Unfortunately, he got hurt, so he did not hit. He started out pretty well. Robbie Anderson at 5,500 did not go back-to-back weeks. This is what I'm seeing for wide receivers who are low cost. They never seem to hit back-to-back weeks, obviously like a top 5 running back would. Both my tight ends hit. I had Ebron and Njoku, both of which I have on personal fantasy teams. They both went off. And my flex plays were Hines and Robbie A. As I mentioned, for extra running backs and receivers, they did not hit. And one of my 2 defenses hit. I had the Jags and the Ravens. Jags obviously got smoked, but the Ravens came through for me, 4,000, coming in right about 20 points there. So moving on to Week 7 receipt pool picks and who I like for the week. First off, I have the Pats, who are playing the Bears. The Bears are at home, and the Pats are minus 3. This seems like a setup game. If anybody watched Monday night and that battle that they had with the Chiefs and they came out victorious, you'd think to yourselves, well, they should be able to handle the Bears pretty handedly. You think the Pats would be able to smoke them more, but this is the one I see me probably losing out of the 2. But I have to go with the Pats minus 3, taking them for my first receipt pool pick. Next up, I have the Jags minus 5. And the Jags are at home. They're playing the Texans. I like them to bounce back from that loss last week at minus 5, so I got the Jags as my second pick. Third pick, I have the Cowboys and the Redskins over. The Redskins are at home. I like both teams in a division rivalry game to put up points. I could see this both teams scoring 20 and thus going over the 41.5 total, or I should say in the 20s, not 20, going over the 41.5. And then lastly, I like the Rams minus 9.5. That's a lot of points. They're not at home. The 49ers shot their load last week with Green Bay, and the Rams are going to come back and do damage on these guys, even though it's a divisional game. Watch out for those. Watch out for the Pats of the 2 of the 4 receipt bowl picks. So to recap, we have Pats -3, Jags -5, Cowboys Redskins over 41.5, and the Rams -9.5. Now to start off the regular weekly plays, we have our Thursday night game, which is the Broncos and Cardinals. Cardinals are at home. I like the Broncos -1.5. I see them winning 24-13 and staying under the 42-point total. Starting off our Sunday slate at 9:30 a.m. I don't know if that's a London game or not. I'm guessing so. We have the Chargers and the Titans. Chargers are at home. I like them to win minus the 6.5, winning 27-13 and staying under that 45. Sunday at 1 o'clock is when we start with the Pats and the Bears. I like the Pats, as I mentioned, Pats -3. I have them winning 33-17, and that going just barely over the 49.5 point total. Bills and the Colts are next. I like the Bills plus the 7.5. I don't like them to win the game, but I like them to cover that spread with that hook. I have the Colts winning 20-13. Bills covering by that 0.5 point and staying under the 43-point total. Miami and the Lions. The Dolphins are at home. The Dolphins, I like them plus 3 points. I see them winning outright 27-24, and that going over the 46.5 point total. Next up, we have my Eagles and the Panthers, and I'm going to try this, so full disclosure, the reverse mush worked last week when I picked the Giants to beat the Eagles, even though I thought the Giants may beat the Eagles. So I'm going to do it again. I'm going to keep doing it until the Eagles lose from this. I'm going to try to reverse mush the Eagles. I'm going to go with the Panthers plus 4.5. I'm going to say they win 27-24, so they win outright. And I'm going to go with the over 45.5 with the 27-24 score. So come on, reverse mush. Let's let the Eagles prove me wrong. My first push comes with the Browns and the Buccaneers. The Buccaneers are at home, and the Buccaneers are -3. So I see that with a push against the spread. I have the Bucs winning 30-27. That going over just barely the 49.5 point total. We have the Jags at home -5 against the Texans. That's one of my picks for the receipt pool. Jags -5. I see them winning 20-13, and that's staying under at 42 points. 4 o'clock's kickoff with Baltimore. I like the Ravens against the Saints. The Ravens at home, -2.5. I'm going to say they pull this out in an upset. Or no, I'm sorry, they're not upset. They're favored. But I think a lot of people would feel like the Saints, the way they're going, would probably win this game. I'm going to go with Baltimore winning 27-23, and that's staying under the 50.5 point total. Rams and Niners. The Niners are at home. Again, I have the Rams -9.5. See them winning this easily, 34-10. This game stays under the 52-point total. Washington and the Cowboys. I like the Redskins to cover the -2 points spread they have. I see them winning 24-20, and that going over the 41.5 point total, just barely, even though that's one of my receipt pool picks. Next up, we have the Sunday night game. We have Chiefs and Bengals. I like the Chiefs -6, 34-27, with that going over 58 points. Monday night is the Falcons and the Giants. The Falcons -5.5. I mean, it could go either way. It depends on what Giants offense show up. The Falcons are really banged up. Devonta Freeman is hurt. They have a lot of injuries in the defense. Could be a lot of points scored. It just depends on what Giants offense shows up, and I'm banking on them not showing up again. So I have the Falcons -5.5. Eli's toast. They win 30-20, and that game stays under 54.5 points. Now, Week 7 fantasy. As always, we go off of the $2.5 million NFL Sunday Million, where $1 million goes to first place on FanDuel. Doesn't look like they have an extra bonus this week as they did last week. If your player scored the longest touchdown, you got a share of that pot. So what we'll do again is touch on the top 5 for each position, who I like in the top 5, and then somebody outside the top 5 for each. For this week, the top 5 are Tom Brady at 8,700, Drew Brees at 8,600, Jared Goff at 8,300, Andrew Luck at 8,200, and Cam at 8,200 as well. From the top 5, I like 2 plays. You can't go wrong with Brady against the Bears or Goff against San Francisco, so I would take either one of those guys. I also like Jameis Winston, who has a salary of $7,800 and is, I think, just inside the top 10 for the week. And Mitchell Trubisky, who is at $7,500. I think he's going to have to play catch-up against New England, do a lot of passing, which you can do on that Patriots defense. Running backs, you can't go wrong. You got to play them every week. The number 1 pick is Todd Gurley with a $10,200 salary. Zeke is second at $8,400. Kamara is third at $8,200. McCaffrey is fourth at $8,000. Fournette, who is questionable, is fifth at $7,500. So my top 5, I love Gurley. Kamara, you can never go wrong. He's not one of my plays this week. McCaffrey, I'll talk about a little later. So from the top 5, I like Gurley. Outside the top 5, I like Ingram again to have a big game against Baltimore. A little more hard-nosed running. I think he gets maybe 1 or 2 looks inside the goal line, and he could have all the touchdowns this week. $7,400, I like Ingram again. Wide receiver top 5, Adam Thielen is number 1 at $8,700. Michael Thomas is second at $8,600. DeAndre Hopkins, who is questionable with a foot injury, is third at $8,500. Mike Evans is fourth, $7,800. And Robert Woods is fifth at $7,700. From the top 5, I like Adam Thielen this week, $8,700. Again, he's playing so well week after week. He's a must-start. I also like Alshon Jeffrey, who comes in outside the top 5 at $7,600. He's getting a lot of targets, had 12 targets last week. That Philly offense, they don't really have many receivers. Him and Ertz are going to get a ton of the looks, so look for Alshon Jeffrey this week as well. Tight ends, same theme, top 5. Gronkowski is number 1 at $7,600. He's questionable with an ankle. Zach Ertz is second at $7,500. Ebron is third at $6,800. George Kittle is fourth, also questionable with a knee at $6,400. And Trey Burton is fifth at $6,000. From the top 5, I like Eric Ebron again. Outside the top 5, I like O.J. Howard at $5,800. He scored a touchdown last week. He was questionable, game-time decision. Still came in, still scored. I see Winston targeting him a lot. So go with Ebron and Howard this week at tight end. Flex pick, here is where I like Christian McCaffrey. So I think he has a big game, catches a lot of balls out of the backfield, even though FanDuel is only half a point PPR. I think he gets in the end zone. I think he has somewhere around 7-8 catches and puts up about 70 yards receiving, maybe about 34 yards or 30 to 40 yards running the ball, gets himself in the end zone as well. So I like McCaffrey at $8,000 as your flex. And then I have 2 wide receivers that I like as well. Don't know why, but I like Stephon Diggs to have a game this week. He's due at $7,600, and I like T.Y. Hilton coming back off an injury at $7,300 there. McCaffrey, Diggs, and T.Y. are your flex plays for the week. Moving on to defense, top 5, you have the Rams coming in at number 1 at $5,000 salary. We have the Texans at 2 at $4,800. The Vikings at 3 at $4,600. The Jags at 4 at $4,400. And then the Eagles are 5th at $4,200. So top 5, I like the Rams to dominate San Francisco this week. I see them getting 1 or 2 interceptions, a couple sacks, possibly getting into the end zone. So Rams, the top play, I like them. And then a little bit of a sneaky play, I like the Redskins. Kind of contradicts my over at $3,500, but I can see them stuffing Dallas this week. They have a pretty solid D. Dak, going back to Dak form, turning the ball over, and, that being a sneaky fantasy play there. So defense, to recap, you have the Rams and Redskins, flex, McCaffrey, Diggs, and Hilton. Tight end, Ebron and O.J. Howard. Wide receiver, Thielen and Jeffrey. Running back, Todd Gurley, Mark Ingram. Quarterbacks, Brady, Goff, Jameis Winston, and Trubisky. So they are your plays for Week 7. Go out and get your receipt pools. Go out and place your bets against me for the regular plays along with the over-unders. And we'll be back next week to check it out and show you how we've done. Also, little side note, I am going to get out my phone call with Pop episode, so that'll be coming soon. I know I said that a week before, but I will have that out to everybody. As always, check out social media, Facebook Storytime with Boots, Instagram Storytime with Boots, and Twitter Storytime W Boots. All right, turkeys.